10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, what is up? I'm here tonight with Immortus X from WERU Radio.
I love that intro, Eric. It's really, really fucking sexy, man. So
thanks. I had a lot of fun making it.
So yeah, I'm really happy to be here, man. Thanks for asking me to come on over. It's weird that, I do the streaming thing every now and again. Sometimes like when I'm throwing together one of the shows, but it's nice to get asked to do something and not have to worry about the production end. So thanks for that, man.
Hey, no problem. I love doing production.
Same.
Right. Yeah. So tell people who you are and what you do.
So my alter ego is Immortus X. Immortus X I think of as sort of a crypt keeper of sorts, sort of Tales from the Crypt purveyor of all music, all things strange, all things dark, all things evil. Now that's where, I'll take any act. I don't care who they are or what their genre is, although just by virtue of what the Dark Side of the Tune is, it's going to be heavier music a lot of the time.
Right.
But I'll go with anything if they've got something deep in their catalog that is maybe just fucking weird.
Exactly.
And throw that stuff in. And it gives some accessibility to some shit that'd be like, holy shit, man, the Cars, I hate that fucking band. But they have like this track deep in like their second album that's like about like, chopping the head off your parents or something. And that's just delicious stuff that nobody ever seems to cover. And that's why channels such as yours are so fucking important, man. So that's
exactly. I'm like, if you're weird or you're goth or you're just outside the norm, I'm all about it.
Well, I mean, I don't see what else there is, man. It's
exactly.
I can't be happy if I'm not somewhere like left to center, or
I agree.
That's just the way it's always been. And I've had a lot of life experience, I guess, man. I started as a touring musician. I've been a theater guy, a performer for years and years. Now I'm sort of on the other side of the curtain. Other than doing the radio gig, I'm also the sound designer at the Penobscot Theater Company in the Bangor Opera House.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's sort of where I get my my normal day job stuff. But it's nice to have that freedom to be able to pull out a radio show like Dark Side of the Tune and be able to program whatever the fuck I want. I was in commercial radio for years and years and years. Clear Channel, WAAF in Boston, WBCN, WZLX, Classic Rock, a whole bunch of stations on and off. But it was always, this is the playlist you have to fucking use. If you don't, we're going to tell the FCC that you suck. Oh, yeah. You dropped an F-bomb? Well, you're suspended for 3 days. And and that's just the way that Clear Channel worked. And it was like a corporate gig. To be able to do a community gig is so much cooler because I'm also given the freedom to syndicate. So Dark Side of the Tune now, I just got my 25th station that carries it now, which is great.
That's awesome.
That's something we'll talk about maybe during the stream or maybe off, but I do want to get you to throw together a playlist for me, call it 3 songs and we'll put together a Lunar Confession, Eric the Strange block of music.
I love it.
It'll be fun because I know that you've listened to the show a bunch. So
and I'll pick stuff that's actually gonna kind of go along.
It would be appropriate, sure.
Yeah. All right. So how'd you come up with the name Immortus X and the name of your show, Dark Side of the Tune?
So Immortus X was actually originally Immortus X was a fucking Marvel character.
Right, I knew that.
But really kind of a stupid one. And I kind of found out about him later on. I was like, oh, well, I can't change the name. I've been doing the show for 2 years. But just about every production I've done over the years, whether it was, you know, a rock band, whether it was a radio show, whether it was, you know, a stream thing, I always come up with an alter ego because it makes it easier for me to like go even further than I might be comfortable doing myself. So that's sort of the excuse for that.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had a show or a club show that he did at Man Ray in Boston for years that was called Divine X. And I always thought that was kind of a cool name. But I wanted something that also kind of spoke to the, I'm like the evil crypt keeper bringing you nasty, naughty music. And so I was like, ooh, well, he might be immortal. He might have a phylactery. Maybe we can play Dungeons and Dragons together. So that's sort of how Immortus X became a thing. And Dark Side of the Tune, stupid, directly from Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
Pink Floyd, for me anyway, was sort of very formative music. And a lot of that stuff is under the surface is a lot darker than people think it is.
Oh, for sure.
And the people that are into it know it for sure, but the people that don't are like, you know, they know Dark Side of the Moon. So I wanted something that had a little bit of familiarity there. But I mean, honestly, it could have been, you know, stick your finger in your bum show. You know, I really, as long as people knew what it was for, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So, how'd you become a DJ?
Oh my God, that's that just happened over time. I guess it was. I started off as a musician, a bass player, and a singer. I played in bands throughout dating myself now, but through the 80s and 90s, and into the aughts as well. Bands like Drawing Flies, bands like Voodoo Screw Machine. I played some gigs with Blue Oyster Cult. And so that was sort of where I sort of got my musical taste. But what happens is when you're on the road, you don't get paid shit usually. So the idea, I was living out of Boston, and most of the time to make the money while I wasn't performing, I'd be in a taxi, driving a taxi or whatever, did a ton of taxi driving. And I used to call into radio stations a lot and say, you know, listen, hey, can you play my stuff? Trying to do the whole self-promotion thing.
Right.
And over time, that became friendships with some of the people doing like the local rock shows, and I'd come in and co-host for them, and then that turned into production gigs. And so it's just, you know, it was the networking thing. You know, it's who you know. And I hate to say that those are the things they ask you to do to make a name, but yeah, it sucks sometimes, but that's what you have to do. You got to schmooze, even if you don't like people.
For sure.
And I know that both of us, we probably don't like people very much because we're fucking weird, right?
Exactly. All right. So, how do you like your shows? Like when you have like, you know, your Dark Side of the Tune, it like flows really well. Like, how much time do you actually put into like, you know, picking the order and all that?
You know, I'm actually super glad that you asked that, because a lot of people don't. And they assume that like a radio show is just like, oh, cool, that was a great song, or I really like that song. But very rarely do people pay attention to the stuff between the songs. And I try to make full hour-long blocks that are sort of like this sort of flowing thing. And that's just, I think, honestly, it's just from being fucking weird. It's from remembering stuff from TV shows, or movies, or if I know I have a theme for the show, like, actually, you know, let me fire something up
All right.
on a Google Drive here. I'm not going to play anything. I just want to have a list of like what some of my show titles have been over the years, because they're just absolutely, you know, crazy. But so a lot of times I'll take something like a theme and just sort of riff on it, and then ideas will pop into my head as I'm building. At the beginning of a show, when I'm first building it out, I have a general idea of like where I'm hopeful to go with it. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to wrestle with the drive here. All right, there's my DS archives. Okay, cool. Right, cool. All right, there we go. So like, say I'll go back to January 19th of 2020. was called Rest Well, Professor P. So that was back when Neil Peart, the drummer from Rush, died. And because Rush was sort of important again for me in formative years. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to do a show. This guy just passed away. It's going to be all sort of Neil Peart centric stuff. And then as I'm building the show, there might be a lyric that I hear that stands out, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. And there's a connection to like that horror movie, like The Changeling with George C. Scott, or any number of things, because I just collect useless knowledge. And then I'll go, okay, well that will work. And then I'll go find the clip, edit it down, put it in. But over the years of doing these shows, I have a huge archive of stuff. So there's things that if you've heard the show a lot, there's some things that you probably heard a few times that it's just really good connective tissue. Like stupid shit like, hey, you want to smoke some weed? Just take one hit. Be like, it'll make you feel good. And the dude like blows his head off, it's like because he's too high, but stupid shit like that just comes back over and over again.
I remember the first time I ever tuned into your show, I was just, flipping through whatever was on the radio, and I heard, the Oompa Loompa Doopa.
Oh,
like,
okay.
What the hell?
One of the Oompa Loompa.
And that caught my attention. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, and that's the funny thing about the show, because like the Oompa Loompa songs, it's they're weird, they're goofy, they're fun,
exactly,
but they're fucking dark. Those tunes were evil, man. And you can't tell me that any number of people in real life, if they go to a place and those dudes turn up, I'm not staying.
No way.
I'm fucking long gone. Take your fucking Oompa Loompa and sing it to someone else. I'll record it and play it on a radio show. You know what I mean? But yeah, some of the other shows over the years, like February 9th of 2020, Beautiful Beasts. On the surface, I said, what the hell is it? The first hour was the beauty. The second hour was the beast. So it was like probably like evil, like monster devil music for the second hour. And the first hour, stuff that might be considered beautiful, but underneath the surface, it's poisonous as fuck. And that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes you've heard it. I'll go into swing sometimes. I'll play classical. Anything that sort of tickles my fancy at the time that fits with where my fucking head's at. Because on any given day, it's in a different place. But that's why I'm nearly to 500 episodes. So,
how do you keep it fresh? I mean, you said you've done almost 500 episodes. Like, how do you, not end up repeating yourself a lot?
Well, I mean, sometimes, admittedly, with that many shows happening every week, you're going to repeat yourself a little bit.
Right.
Because there's only so much, or sometimes it'll be like, oh man, I have to play this song, even though I know I played it, 9 months ago. But in radio, 9 months is a fucking eternity. Right. Because anybody that's listened to the show, maybe they're going to hear the show 6, 7, 8 times, unless they're like a dedicated listener.
Right.
And there's a small group of those that I have, but they're, but we're all weirdos.
Right.
Usually I'll get, the muggle emails from people like, hey, what was that song you played? I think it was at about 10:23 in the evening. And I think there was something that you might have bleeped out because it was a fart sound. And I think they were supposed to be swearing. And okay. And then I'll go back and be like, oh yeah, that was, the Tiger Lilies, Jack. Or who knows, but usually it's things that these people have never heard, and that's what makes the show worth it. But to keep it fresh, if I'm having a tough week, or if there's a ton going on in the theater, or I've got other stuff going on in the personal life, sometimes I'll go back to like some of the shows that I recorded before I was syndicated, and I might steal a 20-minute block, and then a 20-minute block from a show maybe 6 months after that, and then put together sort of a fruit salad. And you can usually know those weeks too, because you might not hear me talking as much. It might just be more music centric, just because since nobody's getting rich doing it, it's hard to dedicate more time than is necessary. Because I could spend 12 hours on a show easily. But generally I try to keep it to, I don't want to spend more than the same amount of time the show would run. So if I spend 2 hours putting together a show that I already have an idea of in my head, usually it'll take about 2 hours. If I'm not quite there, I'm just like maybe have a title or I have 3 songs that just kind of want to keep it all together, then that might take another extra hour or so. But when I first started doing it, it was 6 to 8 hours because I didn't know what the show wanted to be. But now I've sort of leaned into okay, this is what the show does. These are the times where I can do something really dark. What I try to do also at the end of the show is like I have like an old witch segment that I use a lot where, you've been listening to the Dark Side of the Tune. We'll see you next week. And, here, take this and stick it in your butt. And then after that, I'll usually try to play something kind of uplifting because, whenever you've got something in your butt, it can be uncomfortable. So, we try to. But, I don't know. I mean, I speak from experience. But this is actually more like what my my streams are like when I have the freedom to use whatever language I want. Yeah. Because on the radio show, you are limited to, what you can do. But my Twitch feed, occasionally I'll jump on. It's called The Spider Cave. And originally it was like turn-based gaming and like whatever, computer games I was doing at the time. Mostly card type stuff, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons type, geek shit,
I understand. I've got at least a dozen sets of polyhedral dice, so I understand.
Okay, yeah, I think I only have like 2 left. 2 sets left, but they're enough because I don't think I've actually had to roll them for at least 3 or 4 years since before the pandemic was the last time I played live.
Oh, that sucks.
That's all right.
All right.
Too old for those satanic games. You're going to hell, young man.
Good. I'll see you there. So here's a question I feel like I just have never heard the answer to. What, or if everyone's different, what does a radio DJ do when you're just sitting there while a song is playing before you have to talk again?
It's actually a really cool question because it depends a lot on what the show is. If I'm doing like, say if I was doing like a morning drive talk show and it was like, okay, then every moment that I'm not on mic, I'm probably taking notes or prepping for the next person that's about to be there. You can probably relate to that since you're doing a live stream, same idea. So that's really about as much pre-prep as possible. But a lot of times you get curveballs and you just have to try to run with it. I haven't had to do that for a while. So if I'm actually at the station doing a show, usually it's like, answer the phone. And it's usually people calling either to tell me I'm going to hell, because the area that they broadcast for the initial episode is very, very religious. And that makes me incredibly happy because I'm able to weaponize my responses appropriately. If I'm pre-recorded, then it doesn't even become an issue because it's all a prereq. Now, since the acute phase of the pandemic, everything had to be pre-recorded. So it's rare actually that I'm at the station now because I've kind of got it down to a science. The thing that I do miss the most is having the live calls, because those are actually really fun to let them call. And I call them live calls, but they're like pseudo live. They come in and then I do a quick edit to switch their words around. And then
how does that work?
Well, it's, Adobe Audition, man, record the call. And then if it's somebody who is really devout and telling me how much I'm going to go to hell, I try to take out necessary words and try to change it around a little bit to make them sound either. Oh, it's terrible. But this is where the world is going, man. Soon AI will do it all for us, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, and so being able to play those things back 15 minutes later, while that person is ideally still listening, they go insane. It's great, and they blow up the phone. It's beautiful.
That's great.
It's fun stuff. Yeah. So, but I've only been in jail for a short time, so thankfully it won't happen again anytime soon, I'm sure.
What would you say is the biggest struggle that you're facing right now?
Oh my God, life, existence in general. Yeah, I mean, no. Truthfully, my biggest struggle is probably the existential dread of like post-pandemic life.
Mhm.
Introverted extroverts like myself, like really sort of, I perversely enjoyed that period of time, and
Mhm.
I'm still having a hard time getting out and like doing the face-to-face thing with people and like schmoozing them in a way that they believe, in a way, you
Mhm.
know, because like, you know, now it's like when I try to like schmooze with somebody in a live event, you know, like call it a theater event, when, you know, the people are all dressed to the nines. I
Mhm.
feel like anything that I say now that's a schmooze feels so disingenuous that they can smell it. And like that
Oh,
scares
no.
me. It scares me, man. So that's tough because I used to be really good at that sort of thing, and it's a skill that's kind of got lost the more rude I get. I don't know. It's terrible to say, but I am super yeah, no, I'm super glad that I get to continue to do it. Um yeah, and yeah, this is gonna sound, you know, weepy maybe and poor me, but I
Mm.
think the other thing I struggle with a little bit is not feeling like I'm appreciated. And that's always been typical of like, especially if like from radio, because people
Mhm.
don't know you. You know, so they might
Right.
call and tell you how cool it is, but on the street you can get by with like, and they would never know that that's the person that
Right.
does that. Having been on the other side of that coin for a long time during my life as a performer, as an actor, specifically like as an example, like I toured the Rocky Horror Show in Germany in the mid '90s, and that was every night. It was like people going, "Oh man, you're fucking awesome. I love you."
Mm.
And like when you've got a sociopathic mind like mine, that's the sort of like thing that like that's the love language for me. And when I don't get it for a long time, I get down. But I know it's just because I'm not well. Oh, I love doing interviews. So much fun.
It is fun. All right. Have you ever like been, ready to do, like a episode, and then you just have like the entire, tech problems come crashing down, and something screwy happens, and
Yeah, I mean, that stuff doesn't bother me too much, and especially too because most of it's pre-recorded now.
right.
So I usually know ahead of time. What pisses me off is occasionally the pre-records will go in. I'll get the notification that they're all set for air, and then when it gets to be airtime, they play an episode from like 3.5 months ago.
Oh,
And I'll
geez.
be like, okay, so I just put in the time to do this. So that's sort of a bittersweet thing because that
Mm.
happens, and I can go, all right, well, all right, people will enjoy this show. They'll think it's a repeat, but now I don't have to do a show next week because I've already got one in the can, right?
Right.
So that's the closest I get to disasters these days.
Okay.
And in the digital world, there's so much easier to deal with than back when, like, you know, it was like you're taking a live phone call and you've got your sliders in front of you and like everything's analog. It was like if a wheel fell off there, it was like pretty quickly that the rest of them were going to fall off pretty darn quick.
Mhm.
So thankfully it's not as bad as it was.
That's
But
definitely good.
but I've also had issues too where like I'll build a show and be like pretty cool with it. And be like, okay, and I'll send it off. And then like an hour or two later, I'll be like, oh man, there are a couple of things that were in there that I'm not sure I'm gonna have a next show. Because I'll like be worried that somebody's really gonna like call me out on something that,
Mhm.
really like, brought up some demons for them or some shit.
Yeah.
But that's what the show was all about. It was the conceptual idea of Dark Side of the Tune very originally was to say, let's scare people. Why
Mhm.
does it only have to be those couple of weeks around the end of October?
Exactly.
Can't we do this every week? Hell, I mean, because my brain and my dress is there every day, and yours is too. Um,
Exactly.
so why not embrace that? And I'm really glad that I have, because
Absolutely.
it makes Halloween sometimes a little less special, but that's okay. That's a
It's
that's a, that's a
Yeah.
trade-off for me. I'm okay with.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I have a question for you, man.
Okay. Yeah,
What
what
are
up?
you gonna do for Halloween? Do you have any ideas? Because I have a
I'll
great idea.
probably be at work.
Oh,
My Yeah, I work for the post office for my day job.
Oh, well, thanks for that, man.
No,
It's not a
thanks.
bad gig. Are you in line for all the pension and stuff?
Yeah,
Oh, great. Congrats. That's good news.
it is,
I
but
know it's probably not the most exciting gig,
no.
but when you
But
get
it's also Halloween's also my anniversary, so if I find time, I might do like a graveside picnic with my partner.
Oh, nice. Very cool. That sounds sexy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can dig that. So so you're going to do any sort of a costume? You know, cuz it's funny because
Um,
like as a weirdo, people always go to me, you know, "Oh, what are you going to dress up like a
and I'm just
businessman?"
like, I don't know. I kind of just dress up like I normally do. I mean, like, I might, go all out with, super golf makeup and shit, but like, it's not about dressing up. It's a lifestyle.
It's true. Ultimately, it does become that. And, thankfully, I've got some people around me now here
Mhm.
locally in Maine that, we can embrace that, together and be like, okay, you know what? That's because when you're doing it by yourself, man, it's tough. And
Oh, I know.
you've probably
I
been
live on
there.
one of the
Yeah.
islands off the coast. I'm kind of by myself.
Oh, you're on one of the islands.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Sure. Uh, wait, you sure am I asking, or do you want to keep it off stream? Which
I've said
is
it before. I'm on Final Haven.
Oh, are you really? Okay,
Yep.
cool. No, a dude that I did some performance with over there, I did some theater there for a bit. I guess there's like a summer theater, I want to say, on Vinyl Haven somewhere.
Yeah, kind of.
But so yeah, so for Halloween, what I'm thinking is, and this,
Yeah.
you're substantially younger than I am, so you may not even fucking get this. But I want if I can put on a pair of overalls, like dungaree overalls, and I want to take a bunch of like hand lotion and like splatter it all over my face and all over my chest and all over my
Okay.
and I want to have a name tag that says Eileen. And be like, yeah, I'm the walking Dexy's Midnight Runner. I think it would be perfect.
That is great.
But it's totally asking for confrontation to the first person that starts to figure it out in a public place, which kind of gives me a boner. But
oh shit, I love that.
Oh, I do love Halloween though. I really do.
I do too.
If it wasn't for that sort of thing, and it's funny, man. I think too. Like, you ever listen to really old like Halloween records, like the creepy sounds of the haunted house that Disney put out in
Yeah.
like 1962. Like,
Yeah.
I lived for that shit, man.
Oh,
And it's like
absolutely.
those things end up in like the show all the time, like little bits from that. And it's like, even if two people are like, oh my God, where have I heard that before? 5,000 years ago, I heard that and it scared the shit out of me. And I thought I was dreaming it. When I get
Right.
those kind of messages, that's when it's all worthwhile.
Absolutely, I love that. All right. So you already mentioned you do stuff with theater. Like,
I
what
do.
else do you do? What else do you do when you're not DJing?
Well, like I said, the Penobscot Theater Company right there in Bangor. I'm the in-house engineer, and I design 3 or 4 shows each season. So that way I don't have to spend my entire life there. But I do totally love the gig. I was a performer there first, starting in 2014, I think. I did a Mitch album piece, and then I also played in Rock of Ages with them and Oliver the following year. And then when the pandemic hit, they wanted to do this whole virtual like season, so people could still get pseudo theater without having to go to the theater. So I recommended that they do a bunch of like horror radio drama stuff. For a while I was doing something called Horror, which was taking old 1940s radio horror shows and remixing them and re-performing them with friends of mine. And a lot of those things have ended up on the show over time too. So they had heard some of that stuff at the theater and they were like, hey, can you do one specific for the theater? And that turned into pretty much audio engineering the entire digital season. And then because of the pandemic, a lot of people had to leave the theater. They needed new blood in there. So they asked me to take over as the in-house sound guy. having done a fair amount of live sound in Boston, I felt comfortable with it. But man, I'll tell you, man, the difference between mixing like a rock band and mixing a theater show is like, sex with a girl or sex with a guy. It's like,
really, it's that different.
It's literally like, and I didn't think it would be such a challenge, but it really, really was. So I'm, I'm entering my 3rd season with them now, and I'm still learning it. So that's cool. Yeah, at this age that I can still learn some new shit, which is nice.
That is cool.
And and it's a fun gig when things are going well. Well, like anything else, right? But it's also a job. So we do what we do. And yeah, I was a performer for the Gold Dust Orphans for a while. That's sort of a drag-centric LGBTQ friendly theater group, works out of Provincetown.
That's amazing.
And Boston. Did a bunch of shows with them. Ryan Landry heads up that outfit, and I'm still in touch with those guys quite a bit, and they call me for sometimes some sound design stuff. Other times if they need a voiceover or whatever, they'll ask me to send it off to them. So
that's
I
really cool.
Still have those connections with the Boston music scene. Jeannie Dante. Actually, I don't want to sit and name drop people from Boston, but I work with a fair amount of them from the safety of the Spider Cave, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other stuff I've been up to recently, but it's mostly been sound design and Dark Side of the Tune. For at least from the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I've done plenty of other stuff over the years, but nothing really worth the effort. If it's not performance or some sort of a production, then for me anyway, I don't really think it was worth it. Or it was a way to make a few bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell, I made a few quick 20s in South Station. Didn't like it, but I was good at it.
All right, you've mentioned a couple of bands, but can you think of like one particular instance where like growing up or whatever, like a piece of music just had like a crazy strong impact on you?
That's a really, really long list, and it depends on
pick a couple of good ones.
Yeah, sure. It depends on the type of impact. I think this sounds so cliche because so many people say it, but I have to give credit where it's due. It's the fucking Beatles, man. As a kid, when I was very young, that was the first stuff I was sort of exposed to. And I can still, any track from any record, I can still find that sort of emotional lift, and have to sort of, and some of those Beatles tunes still to this day, I have to choke back, the emotional, response, because it's just such beautiful fucking music. The Beatles is a tough one too, because I do love them so much, but there's not a ton of their stuff that really fits into like what I build. So it's like usually a special moment when I throw in a Beatles thing, or I'm trying to cleanse a palate. I
can see throwing a clip of like Number 9 in there somewhere. Or,
I've actually done Revolution 9 backwards, so that people could be like, okay, this is just twice as fucked up.
I've tried to listen to it backwards. I think I got halfway through before I got too freaked out, and it takes a lot to creep me out.
It requires a lot of drugs.
I'm sure it does.
or that's what they tell me. But yeah, the Beatles super important. And then I think the first real record that I bought with my own money was 1981, and I purchased Alice Cooper's Special Forces, which is one of those records they call it the blackout period for him, where he claims that he doesn't even really remember making them. And very few people that are even big fans are big fans of these three particular records, but I happen to love them, and they make their way into the show a lot. The whole Cooper mentality, that shock rock thing, was deeply seated early for me, and that feeds into it. The bands that I played with live, like Voodoo Screw Machine, very much took that Alice Cooper vibe. but took it to another level. Somewhere between Marilyn Manson and Frank Sinatra. So it was sort of I was crooning most of the vocal. And I played a couple of Voodoo Stream Machine songs on the show that you may or may not have heard. But very, very, a ton of Cooper influence there.
Right.
And then embarrassing, man, but fucking Prague.
Okay.
Like, I say embarrassing, but it used to be a guilty pleasure and less so now because I can actually truly enjoy it. Yes's Close to the Edge, the title track is insanely good, great.
Oh, hey, what's up, Kyler, my longtime viewer? Facebook didn't tell you I was live? Fuck
Kyler Kenny. I can't say I've heard about this Kyler Kenny, but I'm sure they're very well endowed. Well endowed with wisdom, of course.
Oh, of course.
The wisdom of the cosmos. Although it does make you larger in other ways, I'm told. I've tried. Didn't work for me. Or at least not where I would have liked it to. Yeah. Worked great on my belly. You're welcome, Kyler. Thank you. Thank you, too. Thank you for not hurting yourself. You're a wonderful human being, I think. Certainly better than me. But I love having I love being given the opportunity to just spout pseudo nonsense. It's greatly appreciated. You're a gentleman and a scholar, Eric.
All right.
So what were we talking about? Yes, Close to the Edge. Did I say that? Yeah, musical like moments. Yeah, those are like the big ones, I guess. It's embarrassing, but back in the days when substance abuse was an embraced thing for me, there were a lot of pieces of music that sort of changed the way that I think about the human condition, for sure. For better or for worse, because I mean, here we are. But what about you? I mean, I know that you guys are very sort of goth centric.
Right.
Have you ever heard of a writer out of New York, a dude named Brian Reisman? He's a super goth guy
I don't
too.
think so.
He's he writes for like a Rolling Stone periodically. But I went to high school with that dude. And he and I are back and forth a lot. He's a apparently huge old school goth guy.
Oh, cool.
And he talks about these acts that I had never heard of, and I've actually pulled some stuff for the show based on his recommendations. So actually, with recommendations in mind, what about you for Dark Side of the Tune? Like if you had to play 3 songs based on what you know about the show,
I was thinking about it.
I'd be interested to hear what your opinions are on that. And you don't have to limit yourself to 3. I mean,
right. But I've actually put a lot of thought in that ever since you first mentioned it, and it was hard to come up with what I thought would work. A little bit, a little bit. There's a couple. I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse because I'm pick the same things that everyone knows I love. Dude, but at the same time, in some ways,
horses, alive or dead, all taste the same. So don't sweat it, man.
All right. Well, the one that like I really, really need to pick is there's this band formerly out of Chicago. Now he's out of I don't know where the fuck he is. Now he's moved like 5 times. Anyway, the guy that did the intro music for my show is a band called Views for Villains. And they did this. Yep. And they did this insane cover of Pink Elephants on Parade.
Oh, wait, the Circus Contraption song? Pink Elephants on Parade. That rings a mad bell with me. But
from Dumbo.
Oh, okay. Because there's actually a band called Circus Contraption, who I believe covered that as well. And they're sort of like swingy, like dark steampunk.
Yeah, this band is like I call them like industrial pop.
Okay. Did
Very
you?
dark,
Yeah,
choppy,
you
kinda.
interviewed one of the dudes from that
I
recently.
did. I
Yeah,
interviewed
yeah.
Nick. Yeah, their front man. Yeah.
Pink Elephants on Parade, and is that easily accessible? Like
If
just
it's
like
not, I can send you the file.
sweet. No, I'll poke around first, and if I have trouble finding it, I'll certainly let you know.
Yeah. The next one is a goth rock band out of Georgia who I've fallen completely in love with recently called Vision Video.
Vision Video.
Yep. I actually have them tattooed on my arm.
I guess you're a fan. Dig it.
Well, I don't know if you want to hear the whole story, but
No, we're hanging out, man.
yeah, all right.
This is, I mean, I'm used to interviewing people, so it's like I'm happy to do the back and forth. It's way more natural too, you know.
So
Plus, I might want to like I might want to just sort of absentmindedly like fondle my testicles or something. So.
So I was a fan already, and then I saw them live at an event called Dark Force Fest down in New Jersey, and I ran into their singer in the lobby and gave him a painting I'd done for him, and
nice.
We chatted for a minute, and then later on during their set, I was in the front row, second to front row, basically the front row. I had like makeup on my eyes and like the black stripe like I do, and
I've done that makeup job before, by the way, in the Voodoo Screw Machine
I like
days.
to call it my like Marilyn Manson reject backup singer look.
Sure, yeah.
But he dedicated a song to like anyone who's lost somebody, and I was bawling my eyes out. My makeup was running. Oh my god!
Wow.
And then he looked down at me. There's like at least 350 people in the room watching the band, and he looked down at me and said into his microphone, "Thanks, Eric, for singing along."
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And it was like, just one of those moments. Like, did that really just fucking happen?
Well, those things are
right?
like are super like, transformative, not just for you, but for the performer too. Like as
absolutely.
a performer, I loved it when people would like come out to the shows that like knew the songs. It's like those are the people that I wanted to talk to you afterwards.
Right, but it's just like, there's 350 people in here, and he just said something directly to me while he's on stage. Oh my god. So, I didn't even actually start doing like the show, my page, anything until after that. Like that moment really gave me the kick in the ass to be like, you know what, you can fucking do this.
No, that's great. No, I love those kind of connections. And like those, I still, to this day, there are people that used to come to all of the Voodoo Screw Machine shows that still contact me and like, dude, are you gonna do a reunion? That we love that band. But because you've done so many interviews recently with bands and stuff, I'm sure that you've heard time and time again how difficult it is to sustain that. It's crazy. Touring is brutal. It's terrible. The shows are all great. Even the small shows are usually pretty good. But it's that travel time. It's that having to deal with this big toe that's always like 3 inches away from your nose. It's the smell.
In some ways, I would imagine the smaller shows would be in some ways better because the fans are like probably the hardcore dedicated ones. Whereas at the bigger shows, there's a lot of people I feel like, like even if I'm just going to a concert in Portland, it's like half the people there I feel like are just there because there's a show going on. They don't give a fuck who it is.
Sure. I actually, it's funny you mentioned Portland because I played a bajillion times at Gino's. And that's actually one of my favorite rooms to go to around there. And one of the bands that I feature on Dark Side of the Tune has just started getting gigs there based on the show, and those are the things that make it all very worth it to me.
Oh, absolutely.
And every now and again, I'll play the little promo that I had them do. When they come around local, I stop by and they're like, "Hey, Immortus X, what's up, man? Hey, we got this new demo." And that's fun. And getting that new stuff. And I imagine that you'll get to that point too if you haven't already.
Absolutely, Kyler. That's what I do. I like to interact with people, and you not even intentionally, you say something that just sticks with them, and then they remember you later. It's insane. It's like, holy shit, you remembered I said that, even though you meet like thousands of fans.
And if you can't think of anything to say, do something inappropriate. I didn't say that out loud. That was my inner voice.
Anyway, back that was a tangent, but So the song I would pick by Vision Video is "A Beautiful Day to Die."
Ooh, a great title.
See, it's just like rather happy sounding song. This band I like call them like the Cure that grew a set of balls.
Okay.
It's kind of what they sound like. The song's like, little.
Well, I can tell you that Reeves Gabrels, who is currently playing guitar for the Cure, has very big balls. And here's an interesting story about Reeves Gabrels.
Okay.
It's similar to the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but I am 1 degree, or technically 1.5 degrees from David Bowie, because Reeves Gabrels played in Tin Machine and played as Bowie's guitar player for a while. Reeves Gabrels, when he was in Boston in the mid-90s, played in a band called the Bent Men. I played bass in a band called the Bent Men, but not at the same time as Reeves. Reeves left, I joined, and the Bent Men has had about 19 or 20 musicians over the years, but Reeves still is hugely active on the Bent Men, chat group. So we hear about what he's got going on all the time. And because I've seen the Bent Men shows with Reeves there, I've seen him without his pants on. Shh, don't tell. He's got big balls, but just a little funny, like, a little pinky. Yeah, it's like an acorn. I'm sorry, Reeves. He won't watch this, but if he does, won't I be lucky?
Absolutely, Collar. I understand.
October Noir. What is
Yes, that is actually the artist of the third song I picked.
Oh, okay.
See, they're from Tampa, and they started off as a Typo Negative tribute band, but now they make their own music in a similar style.
So, does he have the Steve Steele thing going on?
He totally has the Steele thing going on.
I love that fucking cover of Black Sabbath, man.
Yes.
So good.
Absolutely. But I don't know how you feel about like 7-minute songs, but
I play them all the time.
Yeah.
My sweet spot is usually 7 to 12. And it actually kind of goes back to one of your earlier questions. Those long songs are great when you're in the studio and you need to like do something. So it's like, oh shit, okay, or oh shit, I've got to take a shit. I'm gonna play this 13.5-minute song so that I have time to go back, for the break or whatever.
But yeah, their song Reverence. They recently put out a video for it, which is absolutely insane. It's like a Hellraiser fan's wet dream. Yep, Reverence.
A Hellraiser dream. Oh, I love the Hellraiser films.
Me too. They're like in my top 5 favorites.
So with that in mind, you should definitely check it out because I think you'll appreciate it. The band that I was touring with, Voodoo Screw Machine, which was like, sort of my brainchild baby band. We opened our first CD with a song called What's Your Pleasure?
Okay.
Which is specifically delivered at the Clive Barker Mythos.
Oh, cool.
And there's a video out there on YouTube as well. So if you do Voodoo Screw Machine, What's Your Pleasure? You'll find that it's a shitty quality video, but the song I think is really quite fun.
And Kyler, just making sure you had it right. So it's Voodoo Screw Machine.
That would be it.
All right.
And that's some pretty weird stuff. You can also find a there was an act out of Chicago. They were like a club, I want to say a club/DJ act for a long time called the Greenskeepers. And they did a song called Lotion, which was about Buffalo Bill, Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, cool.
About putting the lotion in the basket. Voodoo Screw Machine covered it. And
nice.
There was a period of time where it was doing better than their original. And we were getting calls from Chicago to come to Chicago to play one fucking song. But it's a very disturbing song and very fun, and that too is out there. I think pretty much all the Voodoo Screw Machine stuff is out there, and Flaming Telepaths is another big one worth checking out. It's the first Blue Oyster Cult song that we covered, which I did at the behest of Alan Lanier, who was their Blue Oyster Cult's keyboardist and rhythm guitar player at the time. He's since passed away. But yeah, a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan. So.
All right. Kyler wants to know what is a horror movie that just totally stuck with you?
Oh, that's a super easy answer. And it's probably pretty common. So I'll go into some uncommon ones after. But the first one is always hands down best horror film of all time is The Exorcist.
I've read like 50 bajillion top 10 lists, and that is like everyone's number one.
It has to be.
It does.
Because especially if you have any kind of background of any sort of a Christian upbringing, it's that much more horrifying that way. I think if you're brought up, if I were to have children, they would be brought up in a totally like secular environment.
Right.
And I think anybody that's brought up that way to watch The Exorcist would enjoy it as a horror film, but I don't think it would be nearly as terrifying.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's still, some of the imagery in that film just still sticks with me. However, if you want to get really fucking disturbing, and it still resonates with me. It's actually, if you can see to my right of my OBS screen, you see there's like somebody that looks like they're sitting in a chair going like this.
Yeah, what is that? I'm not placing it.
It's from a film called Begotten. Begotten. It may as well be a silent film, although the soundtrack is great. There's just very little dialogue. And it's all done in that sort of high contrast black and white. And it's, at its core, it's a creation story, but it's fucking terrifying. It's dirty, it's visceral. It makes, by the time you're 20 to 25 minutes into it, you feel like you're being like assaulted by something unclean. It's beautiful in that way. I highly recommend it to anybody that's never seen it. And to answer your question, chat, it absolutely changed the way that I look at horror films. And I want to say it came out mid to late 90s, perhaps. Maybe even prior to that. It's been a while since I've actually watched it again, because it takes a certain mindset to get through it all. But it's terrifying.
Now, the one on your other side, is that a puppet from Dead Silence?
It is. Yes, okay. Good call. Yeah, that's sort of a favorite, but honestly, the other side was actually more of like, I just really love that GIF. Like that creepy sort of like back and forth.
Yeah.
But as like mannequin films go, and like this is a whole other fucking podcast, the whole horror thing. I can go on about this shit forever. I'm a huge fan of a film that came out in 1978 with Anthony Hopkins before he was cool, called Magic. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's it's fucking beautiful.
That is a fucking good one. Absolutely.
The moment where fucking Burgess Meredith, his coach, comes to the campsite and says, "Oh, if you're fine, make him shut up for 5 minutes." That whole montage of the moment where he's sweating, trying not to have the fucking such a wonderful performance. Yeah.
See, I always have to go obscure-ish if I have to pick a favorite, and I always go with the Phantasm films.
Sure. Yeah, those are great. I have to say that like the only one I've really rewatched with any regularity is the first one.
I'll agree with that. Definitely, though. I think part 2 has got to be my favorite, though part 3 scared me more than the others.
But the I don't think there's been a trope like the ball for quite a while. And I think that could be a thing. So more recently, have you seen any horror that you've actually like felt like, wow, this was groundbreaking? Because I'm still like spouting the accolades of Hereditary. Is such a beautifully
I actually haven't watched it yet.
Oh, so beautiful. Because it's like it's taken me a couple more watchings to really see how much of this film was like beautifully orchestrated, like from pre-production. They were like, we know exactly what we're going to be doing, but you're going to have to watch it 2 or 3 times to figure it out. And it's so good, so good.
One more, I don't even remember when it came out. Fairly recent. I really liked Midsummer.
Oh, it's great.
I hear so many people. Oh, it's not that scary. Yeah, and it's like, shut the fuck up and
it's
appreciate
horrifying. It's
it's
beautifully
terrifying.
horrifying.
It's beautiful.
And also, her performance was stellar.
Oh, yeah.
And mostly because I fucking hated her for the first like 90 minutes,
it's
if
like,
not more than that.
Bitch, you stupid
and then it was
bitch.
suddenly
What
like,
are you doing? You know.
Well, but then it was like the realization was like, wow, that was just your performance, honey. It was just like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And now it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to like get it. And now it's like, oh, I fucking like you. And that doesn't happen very often. It's much easier to go in the other direction.
Absolutely. And then going back and watching it a second time, and it's like, whoa, there's so many fucking Easter eggs.
Yep. There's a ton of them. Well, that's sort of like an A24 thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Connor. That's brutal shit.
Oh, yeah. At the stoop. At the stoop. Beautiful. Yeah, it's like, he's still moving. Better smash his face.
Yep. A really recent one I actually really liked. You know, when they announced this movie, I'm like, who the fuck's gonna watch that? That's a horrible idea. But Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, actually pretty good.
I really enjoyed the trailer. And it was one of those things where I had a ton of stuff going on. I was like, wow, okay, I have to catch this when it turns up. And I just couldn't find a place where it was running, so I wasn't able to catch it full screen.
Yeah.
But it's on my list. It's absolutely, but I have not seen it yet.
Okay, so I won't spoil anything, but oh my god, it is so friggin' good. And I feel like, for a low budget film, they put all the money exactly where the money needed to be.
So without spoilers, how much of the A Milne world like lives there? Is it just Pooh, or do we get like Eeyore and Piglet?
We get some other characters.
Tigger and like, okay.
Yeah, we get a couple of the other ones.
And do we see Christopher Robin?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. That sells it for me, because I was worried that maybe it wasn't like the whole mythology.
Right. No, we definitely get some of the other ones. But like I said, they put the money right where it needs to be. They could have spent, their entire budget on the character makeups, and they didn't. They put it in places that make a bigger impact, and I love that.
Yeah, well, I'm a big like proponent, and it's again showing my age, but I prefer practical effects over digital usually.
Oh, absolutely, me too.
And even if they don't look as good as they might, just knowing that there was somebody behind the scenes putting in that work makes it worth it to me.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I love old shit. Like Texas Chainsaw 2, some of the practical effects in that one. Oh.
There's so many.
So many.
Okay, all practical effects, and you've probably seen it, but early Peter Jackson stuff. Dead Alive.
Oh yeah.
It's a favorite.
Oh, absolutely. Kyler, you need to go watch it again and listen to what I said and watch it again.
You hated the Pooh movie? The Winnie the Pooh. I was gonna. You giving them like Shiza flicks to watch or something? Yeah. It's like, man, let's not cross those lines. I hated the Pooh movie too. But yeah. At least they paid me $450. So.
And Kyler, you better behave, or I'll whip out the Danzig nipples again. There used to be a thing on a show I used to do.
So why is Danzig so popular with fucking AI engines? It makes me fun.
Oh, I don't know. I used to always whip out a picture of Danzig's saggy old titties to torture Kyler.
Have you seen the fucking Danzig AI fucking like subreddits and shit?
No, I haven't.
Insane. It's like every Danzig doing like every possible like activity, but all of which are like super mundane. It's like, Glenn Danzig preparing a strawberry smoothie. And it's like, but AI for some reason makes Glenn Danzig look like a cartoon Glenn Danzig, and it's poor Tyler. That's all right. At least I'm not your mother.
All right. So is there anything about being a radio DJ that you just feel like most people don't know or don't even think about?
Yes. radio doesn't care.
Okay.
And what I said 5 minutes ago makes no difference to you now.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that is, unlike just about every other art form, radio is incredibly transitory. Meaning once it's out there on the air, it's gone. That's changing some that we get things recorded a lot. And I still think podcasts are a little different because of that.
Right.
But there are tons of things that happened like throughout doing radio stuff that I wish I could go back and be like, dude, that was so funny. What was it? How did it fly? Because
Yeah.
it's like this sort of interactive, on your toes kind of repartee. It's like that back and forth. When people come in that are new to it, and they want to get on a mic and do radio, they're always incredibly self-conscious of like, oh man, I can't believe I said that, or I said that fucked up. But nobody cares. And that's the hardest thing to like make somebody. So it's good to have that fear at first, I guess, because you kind of, you watch the way you are going to speak each individual word so that you get this absolutely perfect. But to me, it's robotic. So people come in with that misconception that like, if they do something wrong, their life is over. When in reality, it's usually the things that you do wrong that make you better. But they're not nearly as big a deal as you think. And radio is forgettable. I would be surprised if when the Dark Side show, before it goes into syndication, so the Friday night show, which is like the world premiere of each episode, I would be surprised if at any given time during that show there's more than 30 people listening. I don't have access to those demographics or those numbers because they just don't give them to us at the station. But I wouldn't think it's a very high number at all, because I can see the syndicated stats through Spinatron, and I can see how often those streams have been accessed and stuff, and get a good idea of where all those hits are coming from, just like YouTube or whatever. But with terrestrial radio, you don't have any of those tools, so you have to hope. And maybe that one person that's listening will tell someone, and maybe you'll get somebody else. But I've been doing the show for more than 5 years, and it's while I love being asked to do this, it doesn't happen very often. Usually it's me having to reach out to somebody. Hey, I've got this show. Will you do X, Y, or Z for me?
Right. All right. If there was ever a future without radio, what would you do with yourself?
That depends if I would have access to all of my previous shows.
Sure, why not?
I would probably find some way to rework them in a different milieu. Because again, like, I think we kind of just talked about it, or I did.
Yeah, kind of.
That it's radio and podcasting are different.
Right.
I would probably turn it into more of a podcast, I think. But if broadcasting in general were suddenly just cut loose, then I would absolutely be a zombie hunter. Because that would be a cool gig for me.
That would be cool.
I would collect peepees. And and I'd hang them around my neck to be like,
like you see people on shows do with toes.
I would do it with I would. Probably not for long, because I would think they'd smell after a while, but
probably.
What happened?
Oh my goodness. Does one particular one of your broadcasts stand out as being like just super memorable?
I think the first episode was because it was brand new and it was like checking this out, but when I listened back to it, it wasn't nearly as good as it was in my head. Some of the early shows were fun when I would periodically bring in co-hosts that, with the caveat that they had no idea what they were stepping into. And so I'd be like, yeah, we're just gonna do a radio show, we'll just talk or whatever. And I'd be like, just do whatever you feel comfortable with. And I'd just try to like make it really difficult and uncomfortable, but it had to be people that I was close with. And those were fun. It's funny, I'm like looking over here, scrolling through the archives, which I should also add, Eric, that because of your kindness in asking me to come and do this, I'm also going to give you unfettered access to the Dark Side archive.
Oh, sweet.
Which would basically give you you'd be able to pull any of the episodes that have been syndicated.
Sweet. Thank you, man.
It's like 250-ish, I think, episodes. There's a lot.
Sweet.
But just remind me to make sure that I send you the link to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like looking at titles right now and going, okay, how did this one stand out? This was a fun one. Back in mid-March of 21, Trippy Happysheet and his Skylab Psychonauts. And it was basically trying to encapsulate a really disturbing acid trip into an episode of a radio show. I was partially successful. I think actually my Twitch channel has the first hour on it, and there's people in the fucking chat that are like, just like, what are you doing? Because there was a stretch for a while during the pandemic where I'd build the show, and then when the show would go to air, I'd fire up the Twitch stream, and I'd just sit there and listen with the people hanging out in the channel and talk about like what was going on or what wasn't going on.
That makes sense. In some ways, because you can't, couldn't have people like call in live or anything. So it's a good way to like interact with people.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
But and I'm still struggling with this problem now, and I've got this weird like display issue where periodically if I'm running OBS and Twitch, I get like a screen lockup. And it just sucks to like have to like reconnect and restart OBS and all of that. So I haven't been doing it nearly as much. I think a lot of the episodes that I did that were sort of either movie centric or author centric have been really fun. Like the Shining episode is a very fun one. Any of the H.P. Lovecraft episodes are always a blast. I love Edgar Allan Poe, so I do a lot of Poe stuff. Yeah. Some of which where I'll take a Poe story and I'll just read it myself, and put a music bed underneath or some shit. Glam, Slam, Spam, Shazam. The Perilous Price of Witchcraft and Wizardry. That was a fun one. That one generated a couple of naughty Christian responses. Poor fellas. I'm sure they'll be fine. And then we had the alliterative episode back a couple of years ago. Spent another Tuesday auditioning nuns, which of course is Satan.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
The Great Potato Cannon Catastrophe. That Sinister Cthulhu Moon, which was basically H.P. Lovecraft on the moon. And so a lot of times I'll take like a trope of the show that is known already and then sort of mash it up with another one and see how it feels. That's another thing I should mention about like song selection. I love a good mashup. And it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff with them because there are so many really bad ones. But I do want to give a shout out to Bill McClintock, who is absolute genius at doing this, because he actually goes to the trouble of going, okay, this tune's in A minor. I have to make sure that I'm mashing it with something that's also in A minor. And some of the work that he's done is just insane. Some of which I've played on the show before. Most recently, I think my favorite is James Brown. Go on, get on up. That tune. Yeah. Mashed with Judas Priest's Electric Eye. And like, how does that work? But it totally does, and it was glorious.
There's some crazy mashups out there nowadays. They're just like, why does that work?
And it's an art in its own way, is getting those built well. I've delved into it a bit, and it's tricky. It really, really is. It's its own kind of like skill set.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people have said that about Dark Side of the Tune too, is like the connective tissue stuff is a weird kind of, they call it a skill set, but I call it just being insane. But sometimes to have the patience to put that stuff together requires a certain amount of holy shit, I'm fucked up. And
I actually had a really cool idea for a mashup with no idea how to make it work.
Shoot, man. What the fuck are you talking
How
about?
interesting could it be to take, Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles,
Mhm.
and then take Song by Rammstein and somehow put them together?
Actually, it's funny. You could take probably a lot of that Rammstein stuff
Yeah.
and just you could AI out the vocal if there's not already
that's
vocal
fair.
stems out there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've actually got a really great AI app that pulls vocal or instrumental tracks.
that's
Like,
cool.
it's getting better and better. 2 years from now it'll probably be insanely good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see taking Rammstein stuff and putting it in with something a little bit more gentle, maybe like Good Day Sunshine. Have you heard Ghost's cover of Here Comes the Sun off the Japanese?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay, I love Ghost up until the end of the Meliora tour.
Okay, so why?
Because the fucking asshole fired his whole band
Oh yeah,
who wrote all that material. Now I get why he did it and I can respect it, but the new material beyond that doesn't hold up for me. It's now rock and roll ABBA. It's overproduced ABBA with way more bottom end and heavy guitar.
Okay, that's fair. I did not really get into the new album so much, but yeah, I freaking love, Kiss the Go-Go. That
didn't work for me at all.
I love that song.
That EP hurt my soul.
Oh no.
the one before it, I didn't mind Pope Star.
Yeah.
So I should say that like the Echo and the Bunnymen cover, Nocturnal Me, I think is a great fucking rethinking of that song.
Their cover of If You Have Ghosts. Oh
that's
my
great too.
god.
Yep.
Have you heard the
off
acoustic
the first
version?
EP, yeah.
Have you heard the acoustic version of that?
Yeah, no, I've heard everything in the catalog up through Meliora.
Okay. See, anytime Ghost ever comes up in conversation, and everyone's like, "Oh,
actually, I'm gonna
step
step away for a second. I just want to show you something real quick.
Yeah, no worries. Well, this gives me a minute to say that this week, this week.
Remember this thing?
Oh yeah.
This is the Hunter's Moon.
Yep.
Yeah, they sent me these.
Oh, okay.
You want one?
Hell yeah.
Because they sent me like 3.
Oh, okay.
Because Darkside had been playing Ghost from that first record. I still love those first 2 records. Monstrance Clock is, in a lot of ways, Monstrance Clock to me is sort of the musical epitome of what the Dark Side of the Tune wants to be. And I literally liked them that much. And I played them, I think, way too much then. But it paid off in that their publicity folks have been sending me swag since then.
That's cool.
Which is nice. Because I've got some other, some early, like the first record, a couple of the picture discs from the first record that are like super scarce now. Go on Discogs and it's like, $600. Yeah, I'll sell it at some point if I'm hurting, but it's nice nice to have it in the rack.
Yeah.
Shoot me your address and I'll send you a copy of that.
All right, I'm gonna pause for a moment and say on Thursday I have the lovely Lady Phoenix coming on. She is the new sponsored artist.
Wait, go back.
Yeah, what up?
I fucking love that.
I know, she's amazing.
That's pretty fucking
She's a
sexy.
haunted house actress and special effects makeup artist.
Here local?
No, she's out in California.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be great. I'll check it out.
She's also my best friend, but that's beside the point.
Nothing wrong with that. I love the outfit.
Nothing wrong with that. All right. Do you have any guilty pleasure bands?
Oh, a ton of them. The first and probably most unexpected,
Hmm.
Barry Manilow.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um, so I was always like, I can't, yeah, that shit's fucking, that's terrible. That's terrible stuff. But when I was in my second year of college,
Hmm.
there was a girl who I was like really, really into. And I had no idea like how to even approach her. And I found out that she was a Barry Manilow fan.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get tickets for this show and ask her if she wants to go. And I was like, this is horrifying. I'm gonna torture
Hmm.
myself with this show just to try to get a little, So she was super excited. She said, yes, I'd absolutely love to go. I fucking went there fully like intent on like, things are getting moist. But come to find out that she wasn't into boys.
Oh,
Um
oops.
so I found that out about halfway through the show, but I had already got to the point where I was enjoying the show more than I was enjoying her company.
Right.
And I realized that he was such a fucking great performer. I was like, my God, this is embarrassing, but I really fucking enjoyed the Barry Manilow show. And I've seen him a few times since then. Yeah, never would have thought it, but yeah, there it is.
All right.
And the other guilty pleasure stuff I think would have to be electro swing.
Okay.
I really, really love what some of those artists are doing. And I think because it's unlike a lot of other musical genres, they're taking things from that are like totally on each separate sides of the universe and somehow making them work together like they've like old
Mhm.
friends. The idea of taking like that, bottom end kick, with like, maybe like a modern guitar line with Bing Crosby samples is
Mhm.
just really cool to me. And again, there's a lot of terrible stuff out there, but the stuff that's good I think is really, really good. Guilty. I'm curious, what would you think is a guilty pleasure of yours?
Um, me, I'd have to go with
Do you like
like
Menudo or
I like 21 Pilots.
I don't even know who the fuck that is.
You don't know who that is?
No.
Okay.
But don't turn this into a guilty pleasure for me, motherfucker.
And people are usually surprised, but I can totally get down with like some Harry Belafonte once in a while.
Yeah, all right.
And
Yeah,
not
that's
just the Banana Boat song, his other stuff too.
guys, he was smooth, man. He
He
had the
was.
smooth going. Yeah, it's funny, and again, it's because I'm older. Belafonte to me wouldn't be guilty.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, fair.
I'd be totally like okay with that. Guilty, I say it again, fucking ABBA is a guilty pleasure for me too.
Okay.
Because some of that stuff is incredibly well written. And some show tunes. But that's because I come from a theater background as well. But like some really fucking cheesy songs that I just think are like the fucking meow, and I like cry like a little girl, like when so, yeah. But I'm usually alone when that's happening though. If I'm out, people think that something is wrong.
All right. I have a weird off the wall question for you that I ask all my interviewees.
Oh, okay.
If you were a salad, what dressing would it have?
Well, I would hate myself because
Okay.
I don't like salad.
Okay.
So dressing, jizz. Yeah.
Surprisingly, not the most unique answer I've gotten.
I'm sure it's not, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. My head is in my Halloween costume, I think.
I think so.
No, God, if I haven't eaten a salad since I was probably like 10.
Really?
So yeah,
Okay.
it's the texture of the lettuce that like skews
Oh,
me
okay,
out.
that's fair.
But again, I'm just a weird dude. The hell would I put on a salad?
Well, it's not what you put on it, it's what you are.
There is that, right? So yeah, jizz. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stick with answer number one. Yeah.
All
The safe
right.
one. It's funny and maybe true. Who knows?
All right. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. It's been really fun, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I can definitely like buy into that. And yeah, I think you're doing a great job with your show. Yeah,
Thanks, man.
keep fucking doing it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, marketing is king. I'll get you on the other side on the I want to say this week for the dark side shout.
Okay.
But if not, definitely the week to follow. It depends on how much time
Great.
I've got in the studio
Yeah.
when I have to build it, because I'm also going into tech for Crimes of the Heart at the theater on Thursday. So
Nice.
there's a lot going on. Good
All
problem
right.
to have, I suppose.
Sweet. All right. I'll run the outro and go off the air, but you're welcome to stick around and hang out.
Actually, real quick,
Yeah, what
if
up?
you could do me a favor, and I'll
Yeah.
reciprocate as well if you want. I'd love to get an ID from you for Dark Side. So hey, what's up? I'm Eric the Strange. You're listening to the Dark Side of the Tune with Immortus.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, and I'll get one for you if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds fun.
Shoot it out, man. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you tune in Thursday and have a great night.
Cool. I'm Immortus X. You have been watching Lunar Confessions with Eric the Strange, and he's a fucking strange dude. Make sure you keep watching. Sex, drugs, and cock and balls. Rock and roll. Rock and roll. Yeah.